for joining us. Just a few technical details while we spend another minute allowing folks to get online and join us. We do have two options for you to join us on today's call. One is through the voice over internet or through your computer. The other one is through a phone line, and there's an audio tab that allows you to choose either. We ask that you go ahead and, if you've called in with your phone, enter the audio pin so you have the ability to speak on this webinar. It's going to be a little bit different than maybe what you're used to with a webinar. We designed this one to be smaller and more interactive in nature than our typical meetings. So in order to facilitate the discussion-based approach that we have planned for today, we hope that you'll feel comfortable asking questions or providing insights. There's two means for you to do that. The first is through the traditional Q&A feature that you might be used to on most webinars. But the second will be over your phone or your computer. I'm going to unmute all lines after this slide to allow questions to be asked. So in return, I just ask that everyone please mute their own line anytime they're not speaking. I'll go ahead and prompt for questions throughout today's webinar, so you can unmute at that time to respond, or I'll read the questions as they come in through the Q&A feature. So both options are available for you. If you feel comfortable, please let us know your name and where you come from, but it's okay to remain anonymous as well. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. And I am going to go ahead and unmute everyone while I cover the antitrust rules. The Recycling Partnership is a nonprofit organization, and as such, we are subject to antitrust rules, and so we won't be discussing costs or pricing or anything like that today. And again, everyone is now unmuted, so if you can mute your own lines, either through your computer mic or through your phone, that would be wonderful. So we're the Recycling Partnership. This is the list of our funders. We always want to recognize them and thank them. Their support of our organization allows us to do the work that we do and provide educational opportunities like this webinar today. And so who are we? Well, I'm Karen Bandhauer. I'm the moderator. I'm also the project director with the Recycling Partnership. On the line as well is Cody Marshall. He'll be speaking today, and he's the Recycling Partnership's Technical Assistance Director. Also want to give folks a sense of who's registered for today's webinar. We have 6 local governments, 3 state governments, 3 governmental agencies, 2 nonprofits, and 1 material recovery facility that have registered. This represents recycling coordinators, program managers, directors, engineers. So we have a lot of different expertise that's on the line and backgrounds. And so we hope that that comes into play during the course of today's call. Just as a little background before we jump into our first myth, where did we come up with these? How did we come up with what we say is the truth about the myths? Rest assured, we did not just make it up. We interviewed the 6 different cart companies in cities across the U.S., and we've ground tested each of these with our local government grant recipients who have recently transitioned to carts. So we are hoping to take that information that we've learned through our research and on-the-ground work and share those as lessons that we've learned to hopefully make your experience both more effective and more efficient. So with that, let's jump right into our first myth. Education simply means informing residents. And Cody, I'd like to turn it over to you.
Yeah, great. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, so with this one, often when cities are making big transitions in their recycling programs, we all think of the one big audience as our being our citizens. That's the main audience we focus on to inform them how to do this recycling program and how to do it better. Well, when we're going through a big transition like cart collection, we think of there as being 3 audiences, that being your decision makers, frontline staff, and your residents. So starting with your decision makers, your elected officials, the city managers, they're the ones that are going to have to approve the budget. So obviously they need to know the ins and outs of the program and why this is the best long-term solution for your recycling program. Once it's approved, they're also going to need to know those basic details because they'll be interacting with your citizens as well. And so once the program's approved and moving along, your frontline staff throughout the entire transition is going to need to be in the know as well. These are your drivers, your supervisors, the people answering the phones. They need to know the ins and outs of your program as well. They're interacting with citizens on a daily basis. So citizens hear carts are coming, they might track down a truck and ask the driver what's going on and ask them particular questions about what to expect. It's important for these folks to know and say the same things you're saying. So so getting your internal group, elected officials and frontline staff, all on the same page with talking points and understanding the plan and how the transition is going to go is really going to lead to success when you do target your residents with the good education about the carts coming.
Great, thanks for that, Cody. Not all of these myths have been kind of allotted the same discussion time, just as a heads up. This one is a pretty straightforward one. It's more tips from the field. If anyone has a question, a quick question about this one, we can go ahead and take one question. Otherwise, we can go ahead and move on to our next myth. Okay, hearing no questions, we'll go ahead and cruise right through, and we can always come back to something down the road as well. So myth number 2, cart rollouts, they just involve a few key steps. There's not a lot involved. There's just a couple big milestones. And Cody, you want to walk us through this one?
Yeah, when you're starting to plan your program, you might be thinking, or at least people on your team might be thinking, okay, we got to think about the RFPs and the contracts, and then think about when carts arrive. Well, there are a lot of little tiny milestones throughout that process to think about that we think are important to highlight, and they're the things that really kind of come to the top of important issues to think about when we did interview the car companies and the local governments. And so what we've put together here on this slide is a 15-month timeline of milestones for so to kind of imagine an example city of 50,000 homes needing. So they'll need 50,000 carts, and what that timeline might look like over 15 months. So we can get into that a little bit. The first thing that you're gonna have to do is talk with your MRF, making sure they'll be able to handle the extra material and also handle single stream if that's what you're going to transition to with your carts. Kind of a funny thing, we've talked to a few cities that have gone through part of the process of doing the budget and doing all this work with their elected officials to try to make sure they can transition to carts, and then realize that when they put the RFP out for processing, there wasn't a local MRF to be able to handle single stream, and they weren't willing to change to single stream. So kind of funny. It's kind of a no-brainer, but that a lot of you probably have already thought of, but important to note that that's the first thing you want to do is make sure you have a place to take your material. And then you want to immediately start talking with your elected officials and making sure there's buy-in there and they understand why this is the best long-term solution for your community. And then the next couple, if you hit the next couple, you're going to really want to start your developing your budget, and the best way to do that is a year and a half in advance. Start talking to your cart company and start talking to your team. When you're talking to your cart company, you understand how many carts you'll need for replacements and all this other type of detail and the types of specs you want for your carts and what that cost will be. And so that will help you develop this budget and start the rest of your planning process. Then about a year in advance, you'll probably be getting your public approval for a community this size. And then next, once that public approval happens, you're going to really want to educate your frontline staff and make sure it doesn't stop there. You need to continue it through the process as things change and develop, making sure the people answering the phone and driving your trucks know the basic details of when carts are coming and anything else that might be changing with the carts. Trucks, if you're transitioning to carts, if you're picking up bins or bags now and you don't have cart tippers, you're going to fully automated with an arm or something like that. These trucks take anywhere from 160 to 210 days. So end of the year, the year before your carts will roll out, you're probably going to want to put that cart RFP out. And then around the same time, end of 2016. In this scenario, you'd want to put out your processing RFP, depending on the relationship with your MRF. You want to start talking with them and trying to understand what that relationship will look like with single stream processing. And then the next milestone that you really need to think about is your cart RFP. And while the truck and the single stream MRF processing RFPs, it's never technically too early to put those out and start planning that. Your cart RFP, there's a sweet spot within 6 months where you're gonna want to put your cart RFP. You don't want to put the cart RFP out too early because these car companies won't be able to be as aggressive if they don't know, they're not able to project what the resin prices will be. So within 6 months, they'll have a better idea of what resin prices will be, and they'll be able to be more aggressive with the pricing. And then about 2 months out of when your first cart will be delivered, you're going to want to tighten up your address list and get that to your cart vendor and start talking with them about your address list for assembly and distribution. This is a big one. It takes a lot of time, but your cart vendor will help you through this, and they'll also try to scrub the data to make sure that rollout is as successful as possible. And then this one seems like a small one, but every cart company we spoke to and the communities we've interviewed about their process and going through this is about 6 weeks before carts are rolled out, you're going to want to approve the cart artwork because without that artwork approved, they can't make carts, and it's going to take them 4 to 6 weeks to make the carts. So it seems like a small thing and ends up getting postponed at the local level of just not returning an email to kind of formally approve that this is my hot stamp, this is my IML, and that's the right phone number and the city seal or whatever. If that's postponed, the manufacturing of your cart will be postponed. So everybody raised this as being a very important milestone. And then, depending on the size of your community and how you typically educate and inform your residents, every city can be a little bit different, but we suggest about a month out from the first cart being delivered, you're going to want to start your education campaign, letting your residents know that the carts are coming. If you do it too early, residents will start forgetting, they'll kind of lose interest, or they'll kind of get frustrated if the carts aren't coming sooner. So we see the sweet spot as being about a month out to kind of say, hey, carts are coming. And then as you get closer, giving them a little bit more detail about the carts coming, material that can be added to the program, and then throughout the process, getting a little bit heavier into the details of that car program. And then hopefully a few weeks before the first cart comes, your trucks will arrive. So in this scenario, maybe mid-May of 2017, your trucks will arrive, and this will give you a few weeks to kind of practice and get your drivers to know the equipment a little bit better. If you're going from semi-automated to a fully automated truck with an arm, you're really going to want that practice. And in this scenario, of 50,000 carts hitting the street, we suggest to budget about a month for that assembly and distribution. And so if we want the last cart to be delivered June 30th of 2017, starting that first week of June, with the distribution and lasting about a month, is a pretty good budget for time. But when you do that first, before you start rolling your carts out, you need a quality control strategy. And what I mean by quality control is the quality of the material that will be in the container. Going from a bin-based or a bag-based program, carts will often increase contamination. And so you're going to want a really strong strategy before that first cart hits, and making sure there's a good policy for so your drivers know when to reject a cart if it is contaminated, and or how to educate your residents if carts are being contaminated, to make sure you're communicating right at the curb. And then you're going to want that quality control strategy to last. You kind of be heavy in the beginning to really send that important message, and then make sure it's implemented throughout the life of your program afterward.
Thanks for that, Cody. The timeline is one that we spend a lot of time with our communities on when we first get started, and there's variability here. Cody kind of framed this out around a 50,000 household community. The timeline can be adjusted based on community size and some other variables, but this is really a very workable and low stress or less stress timeline for this type of rollout. Love to open it up to any questions here. Any immediate questions or just discussion? Do you see anything missing in the programs that you've run or changes that you've made, or is there something that we've left out here that should be here? Any questions or comments from the audience?
Karen, one thing that I would add is, as questions might pop in, a good budget figure when we've talked to communities that have been through the transition, big cities, small cities, and then also all the cart companies, they're saying about an assembly and distribution team is basically your cart company will help you through that. So they'll hire a subcontractor. And then a good budget for time is probably maxing out at about 20,000 carts per week for delivery. But a lot of cities that we spoke to say that about 10,000, 15,000 carts per week is probably a good number to budget.
Great, that's helpful, Cody. Well, if there aren't any questions or other comments at this time, we'll keep pushing along. And again, if anything comes up, the timeline is kind of the backbone of everything else that we're talking about today. So it gets woven through the other pieces as well. Okay, myth number 3, only people that want a cart should get one. After all, they're the only ones who will participate. This myth comes from a couple of different places. One is from historically subscription-based programs where residents have to subscribe to receive recycling service. Also in opt-in programs where the program might not be subscription-based, it might be provided automatically, but the resident still has to opt in. They have to call and request a container regardless of whether or not an additional cost is attached to either the container or the service. And this is one that we feel pretty strongly about. This is a best practice from our perspective. We believe that every eligible household currently getting curbside service should automatically receive a cart. If the conversion to carts allows for the addition of other households to the program, so if additional like 4 units to a building or condos are being folded in to receive recycling service, they should get a cart as well. The number of carts that they get might look different from single family, and we have some formulas that we've developed based on experience to help guide in that, and then it can be a little bit of just testing and trial and error based on that specific community in the multifamily complex. But this really maximizes access to convenient recycling for your residents. It creates the strongest program. It creates the most efficient program, and that's why it's a best management practice for us. From a municipal perspective, your fixed costs are the same. The people operating the trucks, the cost of the trucks themselves, the fuel in the trucks as they run their route. What changes, the variable in there, is how densely packed those trucks can get with material as they go through a route. And so by having an opt-in system, you're going to see much lower participation, which means you're going to have a lot less efficient routing and a lot less efficient collection and lower diversion rates as well. And we have a few kind of fun anecdotes from that. In Florence, Alabama, where we partnered with them, they had a resident call up and say, I never recycled before, but I figured I might as well start since you sent us this cart. And there really is a lot of recyclable stuff after all. And so, once they start to see the cart and the ease and accessibility of using it, the behavior starts happening. But this person wouldn't have gone out of their way to request a cart or added it on as a service. So we also see some studies, the recent one coming out of Michigan, that looked at participation in subscription-based service versus participation in service where there's equity between recycling and trash collection. And that study found around 15% participation rates for communities with subscription and about 68% participation rate for communities that have equity at the curb between recycling and trash collection. Cody, anything to add here on this myth?
No, I think you hit just about all of it. I mean, that is our best management practice, right? So if you don't, many communities in the Southeast, Midwest can't put in policy to mandate, if you do have subscription service, to mandate that even though it's subscription, you have to do it. You just have to call a private hauler. And so the way communities are finding success is to deliver a cart to every single home, and those participation numbers from subscription, or if the communities that have subscription being around 15%, and the communities that deliver a cart to every home being around 70%, that just goes to show that your community does, the citizens of your community do want to recycle. It's just that extra step to have to call in the hustle and bustle of their everyday lives. If they have to make an extra call to the city to get a cart, to get the service set up, is just that one extra barrier that hurts the ability for citizens to have that equal access that you were talking about.
So any questions about this myth? Does anyone on the line currently work in a subscription-based program or have any insights or thoughts here? Okay. Well, I'm one of those folks that is in an independent hauler based municipality, and they, as Cody referenced, used local ordinances to require that every home receiving trash service also has to receive recycling service, and that's required of the haulers that are allowed to haul within the municipality, and that's dramatically improved. We have very high participation rates here. So there are ways to make it work if there's a hauler-based system or a subscription-based system with really, really heavy education and outreach. But as Cody mentioned, we feel like the best way to make it happen, the easiest and most efficient way, is just getting every household a cart to start with. So moving along to myth number 4. This segues, I think, nicely from this idea of everyone should receive a cart. So then, you know, if you really want to make a good program, shouldn't programs offer a variety of cart sizes, maybe even a variety of cart colors? Shouldn't the recycling program be very customized to each household? And Cody, can you cover that for us?
Yeah, I think communities around the country want to provide the very best service for their residents, and so often we think, well, that must mean to give them choices. In this case, what we found in speaking with cities is the citizens don't necessarily know about recycling and capacity that they need from the get-go, right? So if you're going from bins or you're going from bags, citizens won't know how much capacity they need. You are the expert in your community. And so, and cities around the country have done this. This isn't a new concept, and it's proved time and time again that a bigger container, standard size, just makes life easier. So, what we're trying to say is every other week collection should have nothing smaller than a 93-gallon or bigger container, and weekly collection shouldn't have anything smaller than 64 gallons. And so communities like Columbus, Ohio have purchased the 64-gallon containers to start with, and they've said, no way, we're not going to purchase those anymore because citizens continue to ask for something bigger. If you do a bunch of different sizes in the get-go, your rollout is going to be more expensive because you'll have to go back and forth to change out carts, because a citizen will get a big cart and then want something smaller and then want to change back to the bigger one after they've done it for a few weeks. So from everything that we've learned and experienced, this one standard size is really best if you're rolling out carts to every home. Now there are pay-as-you-throw programs that allow for that variable size, and that's something different. We're not talking about that. This is if you're delivering to every home at once a standard size. Really, it creates the smoothest rollout, and it's the most affordable rollout. And you can look at cities across the country that have done this, and they will tell you one standard size just makes life easier. Now, there is, with every rule there is an exception. So I think we can, yeah. So obviously, every community has a disability service for garbage and recycling, and so we just want to make sure we're highlighting that. So when we say make sure you have a standard cart size for your community, for the disability service collection, a smaller size is obviously something that you'll want to think about. That service is different and is needed in your community. Some people call this a helping hand service or a backdoor service. This is the sector of your community that aren't able to take out the container to the curb. But just what we're trying to say here is just make sure your policy is in place. If you don't have something in place right now before the cart rollout, you're going to want to make that formal, because the carts will raise that awareness again. So people that can currently do the bin might not be able to do that cart, and so you're going to want to have that formal policy in place before that first cart is rolled out.
Great, thanks, Cody. I wanted to pause for a second and just see if there's any immediate questions. If not, I have a couple discussion points that I wanted to pose to the group. Okay, this is definitely an area that we hear a lot about, this concern or desire, and many times it will come from elected leadership, the desire to provide more customized options to residents. There's communities that will sometimes mail out postcards in advance and say, select your cart size here, and those are just usually are really challenging to manage and much more expensive and very difficult around the rollout. And then, as Cody mentioned, many times people want the larger cart size after all. But one question we had is, and curious if anyone is interested in providing some insights, is how do you currently provide services to residents with special needs? If you have a bin-based program, is there back of house or side of house service? How is garbage collection currently handled for residents with disabilities? And then any thoughts on a level of variability that should be built into the service that's provided? Any initial thoughts there?
Karen, Toledo, Ohio, actually, when they transitioned to carts, and I don't know all the details of it, but this became a big issue for them. They went with this one standard size cart for their collection and didn't have anything to offer from the beginning for this service. So it actually, there was some kind of legal discussion around it. I don't know all the details, but it's an important service. I think a lot of communities are already do something like this. My experience from a cart transition in Orange County, North Carolina, ours was very informal. So it was just kind of like you called us up with the bin-based collection. You gave us a call, said you needed to be put on that collection program. We said no big deal, and you were added to the list. When carts came, we were flooded with calls of people that just didn't want to take the cart out, and there was no formal policy, and so they actually ended up having to implement a more formal process where you had to get a doctor's note in order to be put on this list, because it was just kind of flooded with people that didn't want to take the cart down their driveway or whatever. So definitely something you're going to want to put in your timeline and think about making sure that policy is fairly formal and residents understand that policy, right, if they're wanting a smaller cart.
No, I think that's a great point, Cody. Having some level of formality around that policy as well and transparency around it prevents problems associated with, well, my neighbor has it, why can't I get it? Feelings about potential favorism or things like that, and just having it really clear and in writing from them before you even get started just seems to make everything go much smoother. So if there are any questions or thoughts around this, we'll go ahead and keep cruising on to myth number 5. So this goes, we're kind of marching down our timeline now. We've gotten our carts figured out, our sizes, our policy around exceptions, and now it's time to assemble and distribute. So this is where it gets easy, right? This is just, order them, and then a team comes in and drops them at the curb. Cody?
Yeah, well, It isn't too terribly complex. Your cart companies either do it themselves or hire a subcontractor, like I mentioned before. But planning is so important. This is the first interaction that your citizens will have with the cart, so you're going to want to make sure that's smooth right from the beginning. You want to make sure that carts aren't being left in the middle of driveways or large sections of neighborhoods aren't being missed. And so in order to make that transition and this rollout smooth, you need to get on the phone with your cart vendor and or the subcontractor a couple months ahead of time and talk about very specific details of this rollout. So when this crew comes out with cars to deliver house to house, what do you want them to do about multifamily? So you'll need a plan of, the duplexes, triplexes that are out there, what to do with them, or what to do with these communities that have 8 units, or these little properties that have 8 units. They'll need to understand what to do with mobile home parks, how to leave carts there, and then also gated communities. Make sure they have all the codes to get into the gated communities, and then you're going to want to work through little kinks, like their corner lots are sometimes cause a problem where houses that are on a corner and the driveway is on a different street than what the address says, they get left off of address lists, or kind of make it hard when you're actually out in the field to understand where to drop that cart. So working through these big pieces ahead of time will really will really help your transition. And then your cart company or the subcontractor that's delivering carts, they're going to need a big working space to assemble these carts and then unload them from tractor trailers from the manufacturer, stage them on the lot, and then load them back onto trailers. You kind of see that in the background, a trailer going through a neighborhood with probably 400 carts on it, 400 or 500 carts on it. They need a big flat space for this, and ideally they'd like paved spaces. Gravel kind of creates a problem when you're stacking carts and unstacking carts within using a forklift. They tip and stuff. So you'll have tractor trailers coming in and out. You'll have trucks with trailers coming in and out. A big working yard with a lot of space is always helpful. So all of these things need to be considered, and again, your cart vendor, subcontractor that's delivering them, they've been through this a million times, but you will need to have really good conversations with them months in advance to kind of work all this out.
Thanks, Cody. Appreciate that in-depth review. Any questions here for Cody? Thoughts or comments? This is one of those spots in this whole process that it's when the whole program becomes so visible and transparent to the residents, and when they're actually receiving their cart, and having this process go smoothly, having the resident receive the cart with good information, where it's supposed to be, it just sets a really good tone. So having good planning, having that clean address list, knowing, having everybody kind of in line on what to say and do, can just make such a big difference and really cut down on those calls after the carts are delivered.
Yeah, Karen, a couple things from our recent experiences. There's 2 things that we've experienced. In Florence, Alabama, we actually went out with the recycling coordinator when they were delivering the carts, and what they found was they were moving through the neighborhoods really fast, which is great, but a lot of times leaving the cart in the middle of the driveway. And so that was really great that the recycling coordinator actually went out with the cart distribution team to see firsthand what's happening, because they were getting calls in the office about carts being left in the middle of driveways. People coming home from work have to get out, move the cart, they're frustrated. So she was able to kind of see that firsthand and handle it right in the beginning of the cart rollout. And then another issue that it kind of proves the point of needing a close relationship with the cart vendor and the subcontractor. In Roanoke, Virginia, the cart rollout went smoothly. It was done with a subcontractor. After the cart rollout, they went back for a little bit of quality control. They wanted to make sure carts were delivered to particular addresses, and so they went out behind homes to see that so if the cart wasn't visible, they'd actually go behind the home to see it. Well, this raised a lot of red flags because a random person was in somebody's backyard and stuff, and the city had no idea that this was going on. And so just that close relationship with the crews that will be delivering carts, they're representing your city, they're representing your department. The citizens will think that you know exactly what's happening out there, and you're expected to know everything that's happening out there. So just planning and knowing who's out there and having a good relationship with them is just so important for a smooth rollout.
Great, thanks, Cody. Okay, myth number 6. This is one that is a hot topic at the moment. Contracts, contracting, commodity pricing. Myth number 6, this is definitely written from the community perspective, but contracts that put all of the risk, the financial risk on the MRF are ideal. Cody, can you walk us through a little bit of understanding around the MRF contracting process?
Yeah, definitely. Like you're mentioning, this is more important now than ever, right? So when revenue for material was better, we didn't quite worry about this as much. We're always wanting a good relationship with a MRF, but as markets become tighter, it becomes, little things like quality of material or other things kind of become more serious, and that makes it more apparent and highlights the importance of a win-win contract with a MRF. MRFs cannot take the full risk. They need to be successful. They need to make a profit, and so historically, when revenue's coming in and everybody's getting a little bit, it's not as a big a deal. So when they're starting to get pinched, MRFs will need to, it costs money to process this material, and so they're going to need to work closely with you if markets become tight, so they can continue to move material and work with their heads above water. There's a couple ways that the two basic ways that local governments and MRFs work together as far as revenue sharing goes is either a flat rate or a market-based rate or variable rate. There's 100 different ways to kind of work out relationships between a MRF and a local government. These are just the two basic. So flat rate being it's just one standard month after month revenue, so like dollar figure or maybe even a tip fee. And then the market-based kind of local governments will work with the MRF. When times are good, everybody gets a little revenue. When times are when the markets dip a little bit, they might have to pay a little bit of a tip fee, but kind of going with the market. So it's just so important to highlight as you're working out new contracts with MRFs, if you're transitioning to single stream, little things that will share this risk. So local governments, their biggest thing, in general, is they need to be able to budget. Their year is set, and your recycling department, solid waste department, operates a little bit differently than probably a lot of the departments in your local government. And so it would be hard for a recycling manager to go halfway through, mid-year, go to their elected officials and say, oh, hey, we need about $50,000 more bucks because markets aren't markets took a dip in recycling. That doesn't go over very well. So when you're working out this contract, and you're able to maybe budget a floor, that's easier. These contingency plans for the local government are just so important. And then on the other side, the MRFs will need support and understanding that they can continue to run even when markets aren't as good as they were hoping. And so we just want to kind of highlight the importance of a win-win contract here, and so make sure we all realize that the success of the MRF leads to the success of your local government program, but the success of your local government program leads to the success of a MRF. It's really important that a close relationship happens between the MRF and the local government. And the tight markets at the moment are highlighting that.
And we have some tools that are available for folks on this one.
Yeah, we have. So you can check out our website. We'll, if you're trying to budget to understand your single stream, what your single stream will look like and what that revenue might be, and examples of some formulas, you'll be able to check out the tools section, like this little graphic here showing kind of the breakdown of your typical single stream ton, and that's what MRFs will look at. They'll look at the basic breakdown and give you an average and understand the average commodity rate of your stream and try to put some pricing to it. So we try to help that and show some examples on our website.
And beyond that, too, Cody, I want to make sure everybody knows that that you, Cody, are a great resource for bouncing ideas off of and kind of serving as a sounding board. So if anyone on the line is thinking about this or looking to renegotiate an existing contract, that you're available to call or email, but to connect with and talk through these pieces.
Absolutely. I love it.
So any questions on this? This is a hot topic, as we mentioned. Curious about your current structures of your processing contracts, or if anyone's looking to rebid their contracts in the near future, if any are expiring soon. Would love to hear thoughts or input on this. Just doing such a good job of covering everything, Cody.
Yeah, right, I
know. Well, good. Well, we'll push on to myth number 7, but if there are questions that pop up after the webinar, as we mentioned, we're always available to just give a call to or shoot us an email and we can set up a time to talk. But this is stuff that we love to talk about. So moving on to slide number 7, or myth number 7, excuse me. This is our final myth in our top 7 myths of cart delivery or transition to carts webinar. And we saved this one because we feel like this is just such a critical part of the program, but it's something that can be overlooked sometimes or not seen as critical because it maybe isn't going to be used immediately. There's lots of optional features. When you go out to bid for your cart, you really have the base that you start with, and then you build on from there. And so you can, for instance, wheels. If you live in an area that has a lot of rough, unpaved roads or ditches that carts would have to go through or inclement weather that would have to be dealt with, you can really upgrade to get super heavy-duty wheels. In mold labels, it could start with just a hot stamp, which is something we always like. You can go to a sticker, which is a little bit more permanent, or you can actually have information just encased in the plastic with a clear coat over it as an in-mold label, and those cost more. The other feature that can be added as an additional cost is the radio frequency identification tags. And those tags are a best management practice for us. They do add an extra cost per cart, but the cost to add it in during the manufacturing is much, much less than the cost to retrofit it. And as Cody will explain in a minute, even if you're not using the software to collect the data from the RFID tags immediately, this is really the wave of the future. And considering that carts can last 10, 15, 20 years even, getting that feature built in so that in the future, if you do add in that technology, it's ready to go. And then it also allows good asset management as well, just to track it to a specific address and home and have that data digitally. So Cody, can you walk us through a little bit more about the power and importance of data using RFID technology?
Yeah, like, everything you said, this is our best management practice. So when we give out cart grants or we're working with cities that are trying to purchase carts, we suggest that they get the RFID, they get the carts manufactured with the RFID already in it. You can see this picture here where they're typically in the handle of the cart, just a little thing, kind of a little piece of plastic, really. And it's a powerful tool. But if you're if you're wanting to do this later after you purchase the carts, it's a lot more expensive to retrofit the carts with this little plastic chip. So we recommend, even if you're not going to get the software, or you're not going to use the software right away, to plan for your future. We find that it's incredibly important and much more affordable just to get the carts with the tag. And so the reason we think these and want these tags to be in the carts is, like Karen mentioned, it allows for good asset management. So these carts are much more expensive than your bins. You typically, if somebody lost a bin in the past, you can just give it to them, hand out another one, no big deal. Now these are $50 pieces of equipment in front of every single home, and so you're going to want to keep track of what addresses have these carts, and when you do a little bit of maintenance or you deliver a new one to a new home, you're going to want to keep track of that. That $50 adds up really quickly. And then during your program, it allows you to track important data like set out rates and participation. This allows you to create more efficient routing, and then also allows you to track participation and target your education. And so you'll be able to look, what homes, what areas aren't participating as much, and then target those areas with education instead of littering your entire community with education pieces that can be quite expensive sometimes. But you're going to want to track this information day to day, month to month, and improve upon these, improve your program year to year. And you're probably already doing that right now. It's just more, we find that this RFID is more cost effective because you're tracking data every single day just by tipping the cart. And it's a really valuable tool that we hope more and more communities use.
Thanks, Cody. We've worked with a community in the past that was really hesitant about adding the cost of RFID technology, since they weren't planning to immediately purchase the equipment to read the tags as the trucks went by, but they did end up including it. And since their carts have been on the street, they've seen enormous gains in material diversion. It's been really incredible, and they're really witnessing now the power of data and tracking and understanding that, seeing these big gains, being able to tell the story around recycling is important for both elected official and resident support around the program. And so we like stories like that really illustrate, when folks can see and understand the value add that something like RFID technology, and then just having good metrics in general about your program and how those can be really used to strengthen and grow a program over time. So we have some time for discussion here, and then we have a few more slides just about ways that we could plug in after this webinar is over to provide some assistance. But if there are any questions at this point about this myth or other 6 myths, any additional information that you'd like to have, or information that you'd like to look at to help improve your program, we do have some time to cover that now. We have a few minutes. Okay, well, I will go ahead and push through then, and we'll leave with our contact information on the final slide. So again, feel free to reach out and contact us with any questions that you have. But as we said, we do have ways to help, and we really do like to help. There's 4 primary mechanisms that we use. We have grants available, grants that can be used to purchase carts as well as education materials. We also provide technical assistance as part of those grants, and then just independently as well. The grant RFP, our next round, will be out in early 2016, and you'll receive notification of that through our newsletter. Technical assistance, as I mentioned, we're always a sounding board and happy to call, be available for you to call and provide some help. We do have public outreach materials that we're developing, and we're always updating our website and our newsletter with those pieces. And then champion building. We're always looking to provide resources and information that you can use to help champion and grow your program within your community. And so many of those resources are available online or through reaching out to us directly. So where can you find this information? You can find it through our tools. our tools section of our website, tools.recyclingpartnership.org. There you'll find our carts module. The information that you've received today, it's found in much more depth and breadth in our carts module, which is online. It's the most comprehensive resource really out there for communities to learn about the transition to carts. We also have resources online about developing a common suite of materials within your community and within neighboring communities so that everybody is recycling the same things within a MRF shed regardless of where they live, work, or play. And there's some interesting resources there. Pushing past plateaus, kind of moving programs forward that have maybe stalled a little bit, and then resources for reducing contamination. In the ideas category, we offer newsletters, webinars like this one, ebooks, and then we also have a technical council and state leaders network. We're always looking to kind of sharpen our sword and refine our best practices by consulting with industry experts, and we do that through those two networks. And then our resources. As mentioned, we have our grant that'll be coming out in early 2016. We have templates that can be customized for communities, those that are transitioning to carts. We have 2 campaigns that can be easily customized to reflect your community and rolled out to support the cart distribution. We provide technical support, and then we have some nice pull-and-go resources that can be deployed through print or social media. That's available on our tools section of our website as well. And here is what that website looks like. This has all been designed around BMPs. You'll see on the right side single stream roll carts. That's where you would click to find the carts module. And then the other 3 areas of focus, you can click on those icons and find the resources there as well. And so as promised, here is our social media information. Our website is recyclingpartnership.org. You can find Cody and I's contact information on our website. Are there any questions at this point? Any other questions or comments from you, Cody?
Yeah, I would just add on and say that if you want to talk about the cart transition, please just give me a call. I'll be around the rest of the afternoon, and would love to hear from you if you're thinking about some of the stuff we touched on.
Great. That sounds great. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We can go ahead and end a few minutes early, which I know is a gift everyone is always grateful to receive at the end of a webinar. So we certainly are appreciative of you spending an hour of your time today walking through this information with us. And again, always feel free to reach out. We're definitely here to help. So thank you for joining our webinar, and have a great day.